If there's one question I know will appear in any of my training courses, it is always, what is the best practice for X? Whatever X might be. And I would love to be able to give that answer. But the reality is, in almost all of these circumstances, it's one of those it depends questions. There's too much context. I'm never going to be able to give them the best answer because I just don't know it. I can give them some good ideas, some pointers, but without being there together with them, I'm not going to know more. And that's where best practice and emergent practice or emergent strategies come into play. And best practice are great. It means if you do it this way, you're going to get the best result every single time. It works for making sandwiches and shoveling snow and all kinds of other stuff, which is very predictable. And we figure out the good connections between if we do X, then Y will happen every time. But for most complex work, it's not that easy, not that straightforward. Which means we need to figure out the kinds of things that work in our environment. And we call those emergent practices. And I like to use a visual metaphor when I talk about this, which is levers and dials. I want you to imagine yourself in a space where you have lots of levers around you, little things you can pull to make stuff happen. And lots of dials on the wall, where hopefully you can make those dials look a certain way if you pull certain levers. And in a best practice, they're all labeled and they say exactly which one does what, and you pull them and indeed those things happen. But in a complex environment where most of us are working, the reality is these levers are not labeled, and no matter who we bring in to try and figure out the circuitry or connections between these, we just can't seem to do it. Which means the only thing we can do is try pulling some and see what happens. But what we notice is if we pull the same lever again, the same thing happens. We can find emergent patterns in our environment, which means that when we want to achieve certain results, we can use those emergent patterns and recreate them going forward. So it's not that we have to reinvent the wheel every single time. It's just we have to figure it out for our environment. We can then replicate it again going forward. Now, this is where things get annoying and tricky. That's going to be different for every complex problem and environment you're working within. You're going to have their own room with levers and dials, and they have to figure out their emergent practices for their problems. And it's painful, but it's doable, and it's essentially what Agile and Scrum is set up to do. It's set up to help you quickly unearth and identify and utilize these emergent practices. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Oscar with Pragmatic Shift. You can find more of our stuff under @PragmaticShift on all social media. I would love to be your Scrum coach. And if you're interested in working with me, you can find my courses on pragmaticshift.com or about me as a coach under scrumcoach.uk. Please do like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us out and gives us further reach to get to more professionals to help them on their journeys as well. Thank you again for watching.